All righty. It looks like we can get started. But before I let you take it away, I'll just do a quick introduction. All right, so everybody, this is Christa Brown from Cardone, Canada, who will be doing a sales training to help everyone get started in 2022, which is very exciting. So you can take it away.
Muted. Now I'm unmuted. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. Hello, guys. Super excited to deliver this webinar with you all here. I know we've all got a lot of stuff on the go here, so I don't want to take up a lot of your guys' time. But I would love to cover a couple of specific points, and I could see as well that we're recording this as well. So hopefully we'll be able to send this out to anyone who wanted to hop on but wasn't able to yet. So good to see Allison, Tiffany, Lindsay on here. What I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through the webinar. I might ask you guys a couple of questions sometimes. We'll get a little interaction going too. But awesome. So I will share my screen here. Give me a thumbs up or a comment in the chat here if you guys can see it okay. Good. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, the first thing actually I should go over is a little bit about myself. So I work with Cardone, Canada. I worked here for 2 years. I'm actually the director of recruitment at this point. But I started out in an account management role. And as part of that, I have worked with literally hundreds of businesses of all kinds of different sizes, from having 3 employees to having 100 employees. I've coached them through the Cardone training program, which is the #1 sales training program on the planet. Cardone is a billionaire. I'm sure you guys have heard of him, especially if you've been on these events before. His wife, Elena, I know has partnered with Megan on some events too. So in addition to working with those businesses, I've worked one-on-one with hundreds and hundreds of people, both on personal issues, personal things they want to work on, as well as sales and business too. So I've got quite a bit of experience in those areas. So I wanted to share with you guys a few of the main topics and main points that I think will be most useful for you guys. So I'm just really curious here. I don't know if you guys are able to turn your mics on. I'd love to hear what you guys do, like Lindsay, Tiffany, and whoever else we've got on here, what you guys do for a living. If you've got your own business, if you're working somewhere right now, I'd love to hear that. Either if you guys can speak up, unmute yourselves, or put it in the chat. Either one is fine with me.
Hi.
Hey,
Allison.
Allison.
I'm in New York City. I sell wine online for a Napa Valley vineyard. We raise money through the sale of wine. So I have different virtual events online for nonprofits, personal events like private wine tastings for like girls' nights out and couples' nights, stuff like that.
That's awesome.
I would love to hear. So, I mean, the selling thing is obviously #1 and in the business, because we're trying to raise money as well. I would also love any of your thoughts on how to kind of motivate a team to do the same, because I am jumping back in and making this work from home. So like a lot of people are. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll go through and then at the end of it, we'll do like a little Q&A as well. And anything that we haven't touched on, absolutely feel free to shoot your questions at me. Awesome. Okay, cool. Lindsay, I see you in the chat there. I know your audio is not working. Maybe you could put something in there, just a little note of what you do, what you're working on these days. And then I see one other person who's hopped on here too. Menen, hopefully Menenji. I don't know if you can hear us. Possibly not. I also see Tiffany. Tiffany, are you able to speak up and let me know what you were working on these days? Oh, perfect. Community of health, education, and legal professionals that provide support online. Okay, I like it. Awesome. Menenji, if you get a chance, put it in the chat as well, what you're working on. If you've got a business, if you work somewhere, I just love to get that data so I know who I'm talking to and making sure that I'm actually giving you guys data that you want. So anyways, without further ado, we'll actually get started here. And the first thing I wanted to cover with you guys is the #1 rule of selling. That is the most violated rule in the entire subject, which is always, always, always agree. And it's a funny thing when you think about it, when you think about talking with different people, different communication cycles that you've had with people. If somebody disagrees with you, or if somebody is constantly saying, yeah, but you know, blah, or if you express your opinion and they respond with, but actually blah, what effect does that create? Generally speaking, it doesn't make you necessarily like them that much. It doesn't make you feel super close or tight with them or like you want to be around that person. So when you're selling, that is so critical. You have to have that base of trust. You have to be able to have a tight relationship with that person. And that means you can't be disagreeing with them, even when they're saying ridiculous things, things that are silly, when they're asking for things that cannot be done. You have to be able to still acknowledge what they're saying and actually even flatten your internal buttons on it. What I mean by that is like everybody has buttons on things. People will say certain things or make certain types of comments, and it tends to get under our skin. But the more you can actually role play and practice those types of comments, those types of reactions with, your spouse, your teammates, whoever it is that you've got available, the more flat you can get that button, the more you'll be able to be in good communication with your people, with your customers and your prospects. And the more you'll be able to move them towards the direction you actually want them to get to. So before everyone is like, kind of starts to disagree with me on this point, because I know how hard it is to actually agree with somebody if they're saying something that's not realistic. The actual definition of agree is actually to indicate willingness or acceptance, which is kind of an interesting one. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually share the same viewpoint, but you're letting them know that you accept that they have that viewpoint. So great ways to agree with people are even simply saying, I totally understand. Maybe they're asking you for something you can't do. So instead of saying, I can't do that for you, or that's not possible, or that's just not realistic, the way you'd want to actually respond to that is by saying, hey, I totally understand. If I was in your shoes, I would want to do the same thing myself. I would feel the exact same way that you do. And as much as I would love to do that for you, it's not possible at this time. But what I actually can do for you is X, Y, and Z. So now you've taken basically that disagreement or that objection they've given you. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe they're saying they don't have time. You want to say, well, you don't want to say, this is only going to take a couple seconds. You want to say, I totally get it. You're a busy person. I'm just barging in here. I haven't given you any notice on this, so I'm going to keep this really quick. So you're making them right for their objection. You're not coming up against them as a conflict. So really what I would recommend is we've got a couple of drills that we do here every day. We pair up with each other and we literally go back and forth and we give each other the most common objections that we constantly receive every day. I'm not interested. I'm already working with somebody else. I just don't have time right now. And you literally just practice agreeing with people. You practice saying, totally got it. Yes, I understand. Well, that's on me. That's my fault that you're not interested. And I totally get it. I don't blame you. And you literally just practice that muscle of rapid fire agreement until it is second nature to you. And I'd love to challenge everybody as well. This one's hard, but to actually go through a 24-hour agreement challenge where you go 24 hours without disagreeing with anybody. And this can be really tough. I tried it. I failed within the first 30 minutes and I had to restart. And it really draws your attention to how much you're actually working against yourself. And it allows you to adjust your approach. And that will be a complete game changer with customers and when you're actually selling. It's like the goal of this is you want to basically become a verbal black belt in judo. When you agree, you take the force away from their rejection, you take the emotion out of it, and then you're able to actually steer them back to the path that you want to get them to. So that was just kind of a little bonus point that I wanted to include here is just, if you can master this first rule of selling, it will make your life so much easier. I understand, Allison. So the Virgo I am literally just shuddered. It can be hard. I sucked at it so bad at first because I'm kind of like, sometimes I find I need to work on this a little bit, but I often think that I'm like, my nickname when I was a kid, put it this way, was bossy. I always like to be in control of things. So being able to like work that muscle and be able to agree with people and let them feel right as well. It's a miracle. So definitely work on that. We do this literally for about 2 minutes every single morning. As soon as we get into work, we do some training videos and we do the agreement drill. Doesn't matter if you're in finance, recruitment, sales, whatever your role is, you're always selling something. So Awesome. So after that point here, the next point I wanted to actually cover with you guys is actually surveying your market and knowing who your ideal customer is. And the first step to that is actually building an avatar. And what that means is basically a mock-up or basically a written description. And ideally, if you got a graphic designer on your hands, get them to create an actual image for you or find one on Google Images that shows you what your ideal customer is. And it sounds super simple and it sounds like something you could just skip over, but it's part of a formula for getting anything done. And that formula is name, want, get. Anything that you want, whether it's a business, whether it's a product, whether it's selling somebody to something else, whether it's something you want to get from, maybe you want to find your dream spouse. The first thing you need to do is name it in detail. Kind of goes hand in hand with manifestation. If you write this down exactly, write down every single exact quality that your ideal customer has, that your ideal prospect has. Figure that out. Then you can actually go and put yourself in their shoes. Because though your business or your product is coming from yourself and it's your vision, it's not for you. And that's the thing that sometimes we have to remember. Sorry, I got a deal here in the background. Just hit the gong and everyone's cheering. But speaking of sales, but you have to remember that it's not for you. So you have to be able to imbue like your creativity and your create into it, but then take yourself out of your shoes and put yourself in the shoes of your target market, your target prospect, and think of what do they actually want. And then actually moving forward and doing a survey. Actually surveying people, whether it's on social media, maybe you email it out to people, maybe you call people and you do a verbal survey. Nothing ever replaces the good old-fashioned phone call. Most of us always want to avoid it because we've got text, we've got DM, we've got so many other ways to get in contact with people. Nothing can replace the power of live contact. In person is best, but phone call saves time. So actually figuring that out and then figuring out the questions you need to ask and getting that survey done and recording all that data. You need to get that done before you do anything else, because then you can put yourself in the shoes of your target market. So that's a major point, super basic. I'm sure you guys already know that. I'm sure you're working on it, but you can never survey people too much. So you can always return to that as well if you feel like you need a boost. So the second point is actually building a database and mining your power base. So power base is your friends, it's your family, it's your associates, your past employers, people you went to school with, your neighbors, people who bullied you when you were a kid, literally anybody that you know, could be your hairstylist. There is a mind there that is typically super untapped. People forget, they tend to forget about their power base because they're busy prospecting and trying to find other people. So there is a huge power that actually comes with sitting down and writing a list of 150 people that you know, 100 to 150. Take 20 minutes, sit down and write your list, family, friends, high school classmates, your hairstylist, your accountant, everybody you know. Because guarantee there are some people on that list that you either, A, haven't sold to yet, or B, you haven't spoken to in quite some time, and you could get back in contact with them. And, you know, maybe they're not in the market for your product, but more than likely 99.9% of the time, they will have somebody in their power base that could be. So actually resurfacing those names, those people that you know, those contacts, and getting back in contact with them doesn't mean you try and sell them right away, because, you know, that's always an awkward conversation. I've had people do this to me, and I've done it to others before too. People I haven't talked to in forever, and then I just message them and try to sell them something. Like, that doesn't really go over super well. But messaging them and just checking in, getting back into communication with them, seeing how they're doing, being interested in them. And then naturally that will progress to them asking you what you're doing. And then that provides you an opportunity to tell them about your product or your service and start to see if it might be a good fit for them or a good fit for someone you know. Guarantee you can very quickly double your business by doing this simple exercise. Write down 100 to 150 names of people you know, contact every single person, see if your product is a good thing for them or if it's would be good for somebody that they know in their power base. Again, super powerful. You're going to find that your circle and your network is actually a lot bigger than you thought it was. Probably most of you guys could probably come up with 300 names, maybe even more, and just use that as your prospecting list. Go through it every single day. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Give me a thumbs up or a comment in the chat here if you guys think that'll be useful for you. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the next thing is, what are you selling? Like, what is your offer? And that sounds super obvious. And a lot of the stuff is obvious, but it tends to be the most obvious and simple things that we forget to do after we've been doing it for a while. So actually getting super clear on what your product is and what value it can actually offer to people, and write it down. There is so much power to having a script. And a lot of people, they hate that. They hate the idea of a script. They're like, I'm not an actor. I don't want to seem like I'm fake. I'm going to sound robotic. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. Like, it's true. If you just have a script and you're reading off of your script and you're going through it kind of rote, yeah, people are going to be like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? Why are you reading a script to me? But the reality is, you always have a script. You're either reading one off a piece of paper or you're reading it from your head, but there's a script somewhere. So your best bet is treat it like you're an actor or a singer, whatever analogy you prefer. And what they do, and the reason that they're so expert, is they go through those lines, or they go through those lyrics again and again and again and again. So this could be your elevator pitch, maybe, or how you're going to sell to a certain type of customer. You know, all the advantages of your product, all the benefits that it provides to somebody. You want to know this like the back of your hand, because once you know it and it's just ingrained in you, that's when you can actually go off script, because you know where you're going. Your script, your list of all these qualities of what your offer is, and knowing how it can benefit every type of different person, that's your roadmap. That's how you're going to get from point A to point B. And if you don't have that listed out and you're kind of just going off on a whim, or you're going off the cuff, that's where you can get lost. And that's where sometimes you end up not getting from point A to point B. So I would recommend actually going through your offer in full, writing down all the traits, all the benefits, all the advantages for every single different type of customer that you might have. Because a lot of the time, people are going to be interested in your product or service for different reasons. One reason might be A, B, C, or D. So you're going to want to have a slightly adjusted pitch for every single one of those customers. And you want to know that like the back of your hand. So highly recommend actually going through, typing out a script, practicing it every single day. Over here to my left, we've got about 15 people on our sales floor. These people, some of them have worked here for 4 years, and they're still using the same script. And they've sold millions of dollars in contracts with that script. They still practice it literally every single morning. It is like the holy grail. You have to. It's not optional. It's not like suggested. There's 15 minutes of role play every single morning where they practice that script. They practice objections that they run into when they're going through their pitch, when they're going through their cold calling script, so that you're literally, you know, like the back of your hand, just like an athlete. They practice the basics constantly. Look at Michael Jordan, look at Michael Phelps. These guys were the best because they practiced so much and they practiced the basics so much. So never underestimate the power of practicing your offer. Now, the next step, this goes hand in hand with this actually, and it's how you're going to market it. Whether you're marketing it through a social media post, through a story post, or through a cold call or an in-person conversation, you want to make sure that you actually go through the features, advantages, and benefits. Some of you guys may know what this is already, but I'm going to define it really quickly because it can be a bit confusing sometimes. So a feature describes the qualities of the product or the service, like basically what the thing is. So say it's a skin product. The feature might be an anti-aging skin product that particularly targets the collagen in your skin. Simple, basic, that's the feature. Then you want to go into the advantage. And that describes what it does. That describes what makes it different from other products, from your competitors. So in the case of like a skincare product, it could be that the ingredients are all organic and it's so concentrated that you're getting twice the impact in half a bottle as you would in another product's entire bottle. So that would be the advantage. Then you want to take those things and you want to tie it into the benefit. And the benefit is a little bit different. It's more personal. The benefit is when it actually hits home for the person and they understand how this is going to make their lives easier. And in the case of an anti-aging skin product, that could be something like, because of how concentrated the serum is, you actually only have to apply it once a day rather than twice a day like this other product. So it's perfect for when you're busy, you've got a busy schedule, you're up with your kids in the morning, you don't have time to do this. and you only have to do it once a day. So it's going to save you time. It's half the time as you would normally spend on your skincare routine. So now you've just tied it to their personal lives, and you've tied it to how it's going to make that easier for them. So on this aspect, I would recommend you guys actually go through your product, your service, and list out every single feature it has. So this could be like, let's say we were selling a car. One feature might be heated seats. The advantage of that is it's going to keep them warm. It's going to get them warm instantly when they get in the car. The benefit is that they don't have to go out to their car in the morning and warm it up in advance in order to get it hot before they start moving. It's actually going to be warm right away. So you don't have to worry about being freezing in the morning. Immediately, the person's like, oh, that's an awesome benefit. Now I can see how that's going to make my life easier. Another benefit might be that it has, it can fit 7 people in the car. So you actually go through all of these features, then you go through the advantages, and then you go through the benefits for every single aspect of your product. And the important thing is too, I should have mentioned this at the beginning actually, is before you go into doing any type of feature advantage benefit or fab on these products, you want to actually make sure that you figured out what's important to them. Because if you just go through a list of 1 million products or 1 million features, it's just going to raise the price. They're just going to think it's super expensive and it's too much for them. So you actually want to figure out what's important to them and then select what features you highlight in order to fulfill whatever their need is. So super important aspect of any presentation or demo is the feature, advantage, benefit. Awesome. Then another point is obviously promote, promote, promote. And this is simple. Again, seems super obvious, but you want to basically promote 10 times more than you actually think you need to. And when you start getting people complaining or criticizing you for how much you promote, that is when you know that you are promoting enough. That is when you know you have hit the right amount of promotion. And the major reason that businesses, any type of business, when they fail, the one reason that they fail is because they underestimated the amount of effort that it actually takes to get something done. So whatever you think you need to do on something, you want to multiply that by 10 times. If you think you need a certain amount of persistence, multiply by 10x. If you think you're going to get a certain amount of rejection, multiply that by 10x. And actually calculate the numbers that you need to hit in order to get to your goal. And it's going to make it so much easier and so much more confrontable to actually get to that target when you've calculated every single number. And you've factored in the 10x component to that as well. So you're actually doing 10 times more than you think you need to. That's going to put you ahead of your competitors. So always go with the 10x rule. It will keep you safe. It will also protect your mindset because you're not going to get depressed or rejected, or rather you're not going to get depressed or upset about being rejected when you have calculated with 10x in mind how much work you actually have to put in to make this work. So that's the promote aspect. And then the next piece of this, number 6 here, is actually make the phone call. So again, nothing replaces a good old-fashioned phone call except for being in person with somebody. Messages are awesome. Definitely follow up with DMs and texts and selfie videos, but you never want to replace the actual phone call or in-person visit, excuse me. So one thing too is when you're making that call, make sure you're prepared. Like write down the objections you know you're going to get, whether it's time or I'm not interested, and figure out how you're actually going to address those objections before you get hit with them. So a really common one is I don't have time. So how we start off all our scripts is like, hey, look, I know I probably caught you in the middle of something. You got 1 million things to do on your list today. I'm going to keep this quick. Do you have 60 seconds? So now you've immediately handled that objection. So it's not sitting there like an elephant in the room. I don't know about you guys, but I know I've called people before and it's been super awkward. It's like, I can tell they don't really want to talk to me, but they're too polite to say so. But then it sits there as like this block between us actually getting in communication and during the whole conversation. So having the power or the awareness to actually spot what their objections probably are, the unspoken ones, and acknowledge them right away will completely let their guard down and allow you guys to actually be in good communication. So a couple of really common ones, again, time. Look, I know you don't got a lot of time. I'm going to keep this really quick. I understand you may not be interested in this off the bat. I haven't even given you anything to be interested in yet. So that's my fault. That's my problem. So I'm going to give you some information that you can then think with going forward. So whatever that objection may be, if you perceive that it's sitting there in their mental universe, so to speak, call it out and they will relax. They will be willing to be your friend. They'll be willing to actually get in real communication with you. So never hesitate to call out an unspoken objection. People appreciate it. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. It takes practice to be able to do that. It takes practice to be able to ask a hard question like, are you not feeling this right now? Or do you not have time right now? And actually acknowledge that and move forward with it. But it's a skill well worth learning. The other one here, I want to highlight a specific fact. So it's always be connecting and staying in front of your prospects and clients. A figure that you guys want to think with, it actually takes 5 to 12 touch points to actually get something done with your customer or prospect. So it's not one phone call, it's not 2 messages, it is literally 5 to 12 contacts. You could probably think of times when you agreed to do something, you agreed to buy something, but the person didn't follow up with you. And it's not that you didn't want to buy it. It's not that you didn't want to move forward with it. It's literally just that you forgot. They weren't in front of you constantly. So the more you can always be in front of people, texting, messaging on social media, liking their posts, liking their stories, reacting to their stories, and providing value to them in that sense. And making sure that every time you're following up with them, you're not trying to sell them every time. Because let's be real, that's annoying. You want to provide value to them. Follow up with them in their personal lives. Follow up with them on what's going on with them. A really great tool you guys can actually use is, we call it the I thought of you when I saw this one. And it's like, it's funny, it shouldn't be necessary to be a tool because it should just be instinctive to us to like show interest in the other person. But sometimes you get distracted with what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to sell. And you forget to actually show interest in the person. So we've got this tool where you literally, you know this person to an extent. Maybe you know that their kids play soccer or they like to vacation in Hawaii or they're a fan of this musician or whatever. You find an article, you find a video, you find a GIF, a GIF, whatever you want to call it, that you think relates to that, and you send it to them. You just say, hey, thought of you when I saw this. And that's it. That's all. You don't bring up the deal. You don't bring up anything else. And I've had people do this to me, and immediately I'm like, oh, cool. Like they actually care about me as a person. And try not to make it too generic too, because I've had people send me super generic messages like that, and I can tell that it's like a form letter basically, and they sent it to like 100 people. When I know that it's actually personal and I could tell they actually typed that message out, that's when I feel it. And that's when I feel it's almost like an obligation to get back to them. I feel closer to them. So never underestimate, 1, the power of personal contact, and 2, how much follow-up it actually takes, and 3, how important it is to provide value, either with information or entertainment in your follow-up. You can switch it up a little bit. Same with your social media presence. Awesome. So yeah, stock message never really feels good. I just got one this morning that I replied to as well. And I was like, meh, I almost ignored it. And then I was like, yeah, I'll reply to this, but it's just not the same. So the next piece, those were actually the major ones I wanted to go over with you. And one other thing I want to touch on just as a bonus, this is the last thing I'll go over, and then we'll wrap it up here, but is actually the price myth. And what that means is, a lot of the time people think the major objection to getting anything is price. It's not. That's never the objection. That's never actually the problem. Like, yes, obviously you have to be realistic, make sure you qualify the person to an extent that they're actually able to buy your product financially. But if they're objecting to something, it just means that they haven't seen the value. It means that they haven't seen how this is going to help them and how it's going to make their life easier. And the price is the bigger factor that's standing out to them because the value has not been brought up high enough to surpass the price. So know that if you're getting that objection from people and that's what you're running into, you're probably not fact finding well enough with them. You're probably not actually getting into it and figuring out what's important to them. What do they need? What would make their lives easier? What would they really like to see going forward with this product or service? You're not getting enough information on that. And then you're not tailoring your presentation thoroughly or precisely enough to those pain points. So you want to find out the pain points and then present according to that and show them how your product or your service or whatever you're selling is actually going to make their lives easier. make those pain points no longer pain points. And if you do that thoroughly enough, the price will no longer be an issue. Yes, you might have to overcome a couple of little objections because people just have those instantaneous like automaticities where they're like, yeah, I just want to wait, or I just want to do this, I want to think about it. Yes, you have to get past those still. But if you've put the value high enough and you've built enough value into the product or service, it will overcome the majority of the price objections. So those are the main points that I wanted to cover with you ladies. Again, I know some of them might sound really simple, but it's those simple things that are really the game changers. And just to sort of tailor in here or further emphasize the importance of actually drilling. And it's so easy to fall out of this, but if anyone here has done a sport, if they play an instrument, they have a hobby that they're really good at, you know that the only way you get good at that is by practicing, is by handling objections in mock scenarios. So find a partner, whether it's your actual spouse, your partner, a friend, a coworker, and work some time into drill. If you can't do it every day, make sure you do it at least once or twice a week. Keep your muscles lean, keep them limber. It will make all the difference in the world. Practice the pitch, practice the phone call, practice that agreement drill, practice handling objections. Awesome. So that's what I wanted to cover with you guys. I did want to open it up as well really quickly here. If anybody has any questions on anything we covered or something else as well, please feel free, like go ahead, put it in the chat or mute yourself, speak up here. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to do that and we'll go from there. Awesome. Any questions from anybody? Or are we good?
If we don't have any more questions, then we can just let you go. But thank you so much. A round of applause. This was like so exciting and wonderful. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. It was a great time.
Awesome. Cool, guys.
Thank you. All right. Bye, ladies.
No problem. Thank you, everybody.